I have these demons that run around in my insides.
Years after Patrick Swayze passed away, it was revealed that he had a secret son all along. An ex-NFL player named Jason Whittle came forward, claiming that he was Patrick's son, and a DNA test actually confirmed this to be true. Now, the truth about his secret only child is unraveling, and it's truly insane just how crazy this story is. During his life, Patrick Swayze never had any kids. At least that's what everyone thought. He and his wife, Lisa Niemi, never had kids together, and he was never in any other relationships, at least not publicly. And since there was nobody claiming otherwise, it was just accepted that Patrick never had a kid. But all that changed when a man named Jason Whittle came forward saying that he was Patrick's son. He claimed that years ago, his mom and Patrick had an affair, but even though the affair apparently didn't last very long, 9 months later, Jason was born. And at first, nobody really believed him, which makes sense. I mean, it seemed like he was just a random person claiming to be Patrick Swayze's son. But Jason actually used to be a professional football player. He was active in the NFL for 10 years and played guard. So even though he never talked about his famous father, he was actually pretty famous himself. Obviously, not as famous as Patrick. But then again, that would be pretty difficult to achieve. Jason entered the NFL in 1998 when he was signed by the New York Giants. And he also played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Buffalo Bills during his career. And then, in 2008, he retired and became a real estate broker instead. So he'd really set up a nice life for himself. He had a wife, Natalie, and some kids too. But then he suddenly came forward and started claiming that he was the son of one of the most iconic actors in Hollywood. It just seemed like the most unlikely story. Some people might have thought that he was just trying to get back into the spotlight after he retired from football. Maybe he just missed the attention and wanted to make some waves. So of course, at first, nobody really took him seriously. But then he took a DNA test and it was confirmed that what he was saying was true. Apparently, Jason really was Patrick's son. And not only that, he was also most likely his only son and child. Patrick and his wife Lisa didn't have any kids together. And this was actually a pretty sad part of their lives because they both wanted to have kids. Everyone knew that, and they both even said later on that their biggest regret in life was never having kids together. But it was just apparently really difficult for them to actually have a kid. They just couldn't get pregnant even though they tried for years. And when they finally did get pregnant, Lisa actually suffered a miscarriage. It was a first trimester miscarriage, which is sadly something that just happens sometimes. But that didn't make it any less devastating for Lisa and Patrick. Reportedly, they were completely crushed by this. And this was in 1990. At that point, they had been married for 15 years. It seemed like the perfect time to finally have a kid, but it just didn't end up working out for them. And eventually, when Lisa just couldn't get pregnant again, they gave up. They had their farm and their horses and dogs and cows, so they just threw themselves into taking care of the animals. And at that point, Patrick also started having some substance issues, so maybe it didn't even seem right to have a kid while he was dealing with that. And in the end, he and Lisa just ended up never having a child together. In 2009, Patrick passed away from pancreatic cancer, and still, at that point, nobody had any idea that he even had a kid at all. That is, except for one person. Jason only came forward claiming to be Patrick's son in 2012, 3 years after Patrick passed away. But why did Jason wait that long? Why didn't he say anything while Patrick was still alive? Maybe they could have reconnected and actually gotten to know each other. Maybe Patrick could have actually been his dad and had the kid he'd always wanted. But the thing is, Jason actually couldn't have come forward any sooner, because for the longest time, he had no idea who his father was, and he definitely did not suspect that it could be Patrick Swayze. No, the only person who knew the truth was actually Jason's mom. Her name was Bonnie Kay, and apparently back in the 70s, something happened between her and Patrick that resulted in Jason being born. But she never told anyone exactly what happened. She actually only told Jason who his father was when she was about to pass away herself. This was in 2012, and it was the reason why Jason never came forward before that. The only person who knew was Bonnie, and she kept the secret to herself. But after she told Jason, it was actually her mom, Jason's grandma, who remembered some details, and she gave them to the Globe magazine to write about. Apparently back in the early 70s, Bonnie had a short affair with someone. Obviously, we now know it was Patrick Swayze, but she only told her family back then that his name was Patrick and that he was pursuing acting. This was before Patrick was actually famous, so nobody really knew him. Apparently, Patrick had asked Bonnie to run away with him, but the problem was that Bonnie was still underage, and she also apparently didn't want to run away with him. She told Patrick that he could get in trouble for being with her, and they only ever spent one night together. But that one night ended up changing everything for Bonnie, because obviously, that's when Jason was conceived. After that, Bonnie and Patrick's relationship ended before she even knew she was pregnant. Patrick and Lisa got married not long after this, and when Patrick became famous, Bonnie just never told anyone that he was the father of her son. But there actually has to be more to this story than meets the eye, and it all becomes obvious when you look at the dates. We know Jason's date of birth because he used to be a professional football player. He was born on March 7th, 1975. Now that obviously means that Patrick and Bonnie's affair had to have taken place around June 1974. But at that point, Patrick and Lisa were already engaged. They actually got engaged when Patrick was 18 and Lisa was only 14 years old. This was in 1970, and obviously they had to wait to get married until Lisa was actually an adult. So they were engaged all throughout the early 70s until they finally did get married in 1975, which is of course the same year that Jason was born. But that means that Patrick actually had to have cheated on Lisa when he had his affair with Bonnie. And it's likely that Lisa is well aware of that, because even when the DNA test proved that Patrick was actually Jason's father, Lisa refused to acknowledge that. She actually maintained that Jason had no connection to Patrick and wasn't his son, which seems a little silly when there was a DNA test saying the opposite. But either way, Lisa made it clear that she had no interest in getting to know Jason. Maybe she was worried about the money she'd inherited from Patrick, because theoretically, with Jason being Patrick's son, he could actually have a claim to some of his estate that he left behind, and it wasn't any small sum. Patrick left behind around $40 million, which he left all to his wife, but he didn't know about Jason at that point. And with all the new information, Jason might have been able to actually claim a chunk of the money, but it seems like he never actually was after the money. As far as we know, he never tried to raise a claim to it. In fact, he hasn't been very vocal about being Patrick Swayze's son at all, even after it was confirmed, which is not really what you would expect him to do. Surely he would want to capitalize on being related to Patrick, get money or fame out of it, but he doesn't actually seem to want any of that. Jason is actually a very private person and prefers to just live his life with his family in peace. It seems like he only came forward because he wanted to make sure that what his mom told him was true, but he's never actually confirmed this, so there's no way to know for sure. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you think Jason is secretly trying to gain something by staying silent? Let me know in the comments below.